My grandma's house always had this specific smell, like cinnamon and old paper. It was my favorite place in the world, a safe house from everything. Every summer, my brother and I would stay there for weeks, listening to her stories and exploring all the dusty corners of that old Victorian. So after she passed, it was on us to sort through a lifetime of memories she'd packed into the house. We really thought we knew all her stories, all her secrets. We were so wrong. Tucked in the back of her antique dresser, buried under a stack of old yellowed sheets, we found a single photograph. And the second we saw it, all that warmth we ever felt in that house turned to ice. What we thought was just an old family picture was something else. Something that uncovered a secret she'd taken to her grave. It was one of those really old, thick photos, the kind from the early 1900s with the fancy scalloped edges. It showed a family of 4, posed stiffly on a porch. You had a father, a mother, and 2 little kids, a boy and a girl. At first, we didn't think much of it. We figured it was just some old friends of hers that we'd never met and almost put it aside. But something about it just felt off. I took a closer look at the house in the background. The porch swing, the pattern of the lattice work, even the crooked shutter on one of the upstairs windows. A knot of ice formed in my gut. That wasn't just any house. It was our grandma's house. They were standing on our porch, and we had never ever seen these people in any other family photo album. I held the picture under the lamplight. The first thing that really got to me was that nobody was smiling. I know people were stoic in old pictures, but this was different. This was pure tension. The father was standing there, ramrod straight, with his hand on his wife's shoulder. But it wasn't a loving gesture. His knuckles were white. His grip looked like it hurt. The mother was staring right at the camera, but her eyes were just wide, empty, filled with this hollowed-out terror. It's a look I've only ever seen in pictures of soldiers, that 1,000-yard stare that tells you they've seen something no one should ever have to see. The kids stood in front. The boy had his hands clenched into these tight little fists. But it was the girl who was the most unnerving part. She wasn't looking at the camera. Her head was turned just a little, and her eyes were locked on something off to the left, outside the picture. Her mouth was partly open, like she was about to gasp. I followed her gaze to the edge of the photo, and there, in the dark reflection of the living room window, standing just behind the father, was a shape. It was tall, impossibly thin, and it looked like it was staring out from inside the dark house. It's just a shadow, a trick of the light, I kept telling myself. But the longer I looked, the more it felt like a figure that was watching them, watching the photographer, and somehow watching me. My hands were shaking now. I flipped the photograph over, desperate for a name, a date, anything that could explain who this terrified family was. A back was blank, except for one single faded sentence, written in that familiar looping cursive. It was my grandma's handwriting, but from when she was much younger, it was so neat and precise. The ink had bled a little over the years, but the words were still perfectly, chillingly clear. They said, "The Allens, the family before us. They disappeared 1 week after this was taken." She said he came from the walls. All the air left my lungs. The family before us. My grandmother had lived in that house since she was a little girl, back in the 1930s. This photo was the only proof that these people had ever even existed in these rooms before they just vanished. She knew, her entire life, she knew she was living in a house where a whole family disappeared. This picture wasn't a keepsake, it was evidence. A secret she'd kept for 80 years, hidden away in the same drawer where she kept her sweaters. We just stood there in that dusty, silent bedroom, the photograph feeling like it weighed 100 pounds. The house didn't feel the same anymore. Every familiar creak of the floorboards, every sigh of the wind outside the window, it all sounded different, sinister, This place wasn't just our grandmother's home. It was a container for a tragedy, for a horror story she never breathed a word of. All those summers we spent here, every single night I slept under this roof, she knew what had happened in it. If that story sent a chill down your spine, or if you've ever felt that presence in the dark, please hit the like button. It truly helps the channel grow and tells me you want more stories like this. Did she ever feel that presence? Did she ever see that tall, thin man from the window? Or was this photograph the only ghost she ever needed? We packed up the rest of her things in total silence. The warmth was gone for good, replaced by a chill that I don't think will ever leave. We still own the house, but it's not ours anymore. Not really. I think about selling it sometimes, but how could I? How could I sell it to someone knowing what I know? Have you ever found a secret that changed the way you saw a person or a place forever? Let me know your story down in the comments. And for more tales that dig up the darkness hiding right under your feet, make sure to subscribe.